Welcome to the Saturday Cadence podcast. I'm Blake Biscardi, and remember, the Saturday Cadence podcast is the heartbeat of college football. We've got the first round of the college football playoff upon us, which means it's time for the prediction show. I'm going to have full college football playoff bracket picks for you on the show. National championship picks. We're going to go through everything you need to know for the college football playoff right here on this episode of Saturday Cadence, the heartbeat of college football. My name is Blake Biscardi, and I am your host. Alabama and Oklahoma is the very first game of the college football playoff this year. It's going to be in Norman, Oklahoma. Let's set the stage a little bit before we get right into the bracket. We've got 4 games in the first round, 1 on Friday, 3 on Saturday, just like last year. How did we get here? So Ohio State has pretty much gone coast to coast as the number 1 team in the country once they beat Texas in week 1. Indiana pulls the upset in the Big Ten championship game after a Cinderella run all season and then showing with an exclamation point that they are legit by beating the Buckeyes. So Indiana enters the college football playoff as the number 1 team in the country. Ohio State follows right behind. Georgia enters as the other team that earned a bye. And then we have Texas Tech as the 4th team with a bye. Those are the 4 top teams in the country right now. But I think there's a tricky path for one of them, and we're going to get into that here in just a couple of moments. But like I said, Alabama at Oklahoma, we have an SEC versus SEC game, a rematch in the first round. This is another rematch of a game that we had. So we have 2 rematches here in the first round. This is the first one. Alabama in Norman against Oklahoma. And this is going to be a really tricky spot for Alabama. We know what happened in the SEC championship game. Alabama got embarrassed. They were embarrassed. They were down multiple touchdowns. They were injured. We understand the dynamics that were going in there, but Alabama really looked flat when it came down to it. They looked flat. They did not show up against Georgia, and they got run out of the building in Atlanta. How are they going to respond in Norman? That atmosphere is going to be raucous. It's at night. Oklahoma has already been in this game this year. So, John Mateer, how healthy are you? I think that's going to be the big question for both teams is the health. And when I see these 2 matchups, I wonder, okay, yes, Alabama beat Georgia earlier in the season. Yes, Alabama had a really good October. But then we look at November. Alabama has not had that great of a November. Oklahoma did have a good November. They're trending in opposite directions as teams. They're trending in opposite directions in terms of health because John Mateer is getting healthier than he was midway through the season. I'm going to take Oklahoma to win this game. I think Oklahoma is going to win it close. And it's going to be hard for Alabama if they are still dealing with that many injuries. No Jam Miller. They were one-dimensional on offense. Brett Venables in that defense, that's legit. That defensive unit is legit. And for me, when I see these 2 teams match up and the dynamics and everything, I'm going to trust Brett Venables and his defense in this matchup to beat the Crimson Tide, setting up a quarterfinal matchup against Indiana in the Rose Bowl. James Madison is going to Eugene, Oregon to play the Ducks. Good luck. This has been a really fun follow on Twitter. If you have been paying attention to it on the James Madison side of things, I'm going to take Oregon. I don't really think this is going to be much of a game. I think, it's great for James Madison to make the field. I think it's awesome as one of the 5 highest ranked conference champions. Oregon is going to roll in this game. I think they're going to win the game by 4 touchdowns. Give me the Ducks. They've got a quarterfinal date in the Orange Bowl against Texas Tech. Okay, continuing around this bracket, Tulane against Ole Miss. Again, congratulations, Tulane, for making the playoff as one of the 5 highest ranked conference champions. We have seen this game already this year. There was a 35-point difference in the game. What's happening here? No Lane Kiffin. Okay, how is that going to affect the game? It's not. Ole Miss is going to win this game. They're going to control the game, and the Rebels are going to advance for a Sugar Bowl date with Georgia. Now we're going to the We Beat Notre Dame Bowl. That's going to take place in College Station. Kyle Field, as Texas A&M is hosting Miami. This game you can go back and forth on. There's a lot to take away from this game. Marcel Reed, Casey Concepcion, The Texas A&M offense is really talented. They can score a lot of points. Their defense is susceptible. What Carson Beck is going to show up in this game, I think, is a really big question mark for Miami. And how does Miami handle this spot now? Are they ultra motivated because they got into the college football playoff after being doubted? It's a little bit of a surprise that they got in, even though we know head to head should matter. So this shouldn't be a surprise. It's just how the committee chose to handle this entire situation with the ranking of Miami and Notre Dame. I think Miami is going to come ready to go. They're going to be ready to play. I am going to take Miami to upset Texas A&M and move on to a Cotton Bowl matchup against Ohio State in Dallas. So Ohio State avoiding playing a team from Texas in state in the Cotton Bowl for the second straight year. They had Texas last year and they won. In the semifinal now, they will have Miami and not Texas A&M. So the Buckeyes, it will be a complete neutral site game for Ohio State. Let's go to the Rose Bowl. Indiana is going to play Oklahoma. I think Indiana wins the game. Yes, Daly is out for Indiana. I think that is a big loss on the defensive line. And when you look at styles of quarterbacks, you wonder, because of the pressure that Indiana is able to get on the quarterback with that front seven, if they're facing a pocket passer, is that their preference of matchup? Is that the style of play that they love going against? So to me, John Mateer is not a pocket passer. John Mateer can move around. John Mateer could give them fits. How do the linebackers, how's the athleticism on Indiana stack up against Oklahoma here in this game? I think that's going to be the key for it. We know that Indiana can score, but can they score enough on the Oklahoma defense? Now, they put 13 up on Ohio State's. That is the best defense in college football. What are we going to do here? Regardless, I think Indiana is good enough on both sides of the ball. They are better on offense and they're better on defense. In my opinion, I'm going to take the better offense and the better defense and the better head coach to win this game. Fernando Mendoza wins the Heisman Trophy just last weekend. They're going to continue their run as the number one team in the country, and they are going to beat Oklahoma to advance to a semifinal against the winner of Texas Tech and Oregon. I see these two teams stacked up against each other. And yes, Oregon has struggled this year with injuries. They've been hurt at wide receiver. They've been hurt on the offensive line. Dante Moore's continued to improve as the year's gone on. They got dominated by Indiana when they played them. They lost by double digits at home. There was a pick six thrown in the game. Texas Tech, Jacob Rodriguez, one of the great stories of the entire college football season. He's an animal. Texas Tech has the players. Texas Tech has the roster. But does Texas Tech have the depth? Can they go late into the fourth quarter with one of the big dogs? That's the big question in this game. When I see all these players on both of these teams, stars everywhere, talent, coaches, players, everything is there. This is going to be a phenomenal game in the Orange Bowl in Miami. Long travel for Oregon. How do they overcome that battle? That's something that really needs to be paid attention to in this game for Oregon. They get a home game, then they've got to go clear to the opposite corner of the country from Eugene to Miami, about as far as a team can travel in this college football playoff. But Oregon's going to win the game anyway. I think Dan Lanning and Dante Moore put something together, and they string along a hard-fought victory in Miami with hopes that they can get there and return to Miami if they can win this rematch against Indiana. So we'll get to the semifinal on that side of the bracket in just a minute. Let's go Georgia, Ole Miss. So Georgia, Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl. I see this matchup and I think, you know what? I have seen this game before. What's going to be different? No Lane Kiffin. Does Ole Miss have the medal, the championship medal to win this game? I think Georgia's playing better football than when they were playing Ole Miss the first time. Yes, it was a hard-fought game. Yes, it was close. Yes, Georgia did win. Yes, they did it late. But Ole Miss, they're going to be playing motivated, I would think, because they don't have their head coach. They're being doubted. So I'm not automatically writing off the matchup here for – I'm not writing off this matchup when you look at a team like Ole Miss just because they don't have Lane Kiffin now. There's dynamics that go into that make it really difficult. I'm going to take Georgia to win the rematch because I think they're playing great football. I think they're one of the 4 top teams in the country. I think they're the 3rd best team in the country. Now, will it be enough to get them to a national championship? Stay tuned to find this one out. Ohio State, Miami. I think this game in the Cotton Bowl is going to be really good. I think it's going to be a super competitive first half. But then again, I said what Carson Beck's going to show up. I think the Carson Beck that shows up throws an interception or two in this game to that Ohio State defense. And I think Ohio State's offense doesn't really have a lot of issues. We see the doubting that's been going on with Jeremiah Smith, the snub on the Biletnikoff. Then there was an article that comes out today from Bruce Feldman that he surveyed some coaches, or he surveyed some people about the top coaches in the college football playoff. Ryan Day did not make the list. Sure, no one's running to Ryan Day's office saying that. But again, it's just noise that you see. And when you're motivating an elite team, you saw what happened with Julian Sand and me at the Heisman Trophy. And Sand wasn't doing anything wrong. And I was just doing my job sitting there interviewing him. And it was a solo reporter. And yeah, there's some, in quotes, media disrespect going around is what people are saying. And you just see, like, when you have elite groups of players and you doubt them and you give them motivation and you say, you give them a reason to have extra motivation. Whew. That's the caution that I have to college football. You're giving these elite players, these elite coaches, this elite program motivation like they are being doubted. This is the most talented team in the country. I understand that they lost to Indiana. This is the best team in college football. They have to go out and prove that in this playoff. But now you're giving extra motivation. You're allowing the best team in the sport to now feel like they are being doubted and counted out. The other thing for Ohio State in this game, it's a young team. How do they respond to losing into the Big Ten championship game? There's some young pieces on the team. It's not a young team overall. There's some young pieces on the team, but they haven't really been hit with adversity in the mouth all season, and that's a big deal. They did in the Big Ten championship game. They lost. They didn't have a great plan together. There were a lot of distractions that week. We don't need to get into all of that. But for Ohio State, that's a lot riding on this game. How are they going to respond? I think they respond well. They are locked in. They saw what happened last year. They've been there. These players, maybe they didn't start, but they watched what had to happen after losing to Michigan to go win a national title, what it required. I think we're going to see that again from Ohio State. The Buckeyes are going to beat the Hurricanes. They're going to advance to a semifinal against Georgia. Other side of the bracket again now. We have Indiana, Oregon in the semifinal. This is a big game in the Peach Bowl. I see this matchup. We've seen it before in Eugene. This is another rematch of a game we saw in the regular season. Is the result going to be different? Can Dante Moore be protected by his offensive line this time? Can he avoid the disaster mistakes this time? These are the questions that have to get answered. How is Mendoza going to handle the moment? How is Mendoza going to handle winning the Heisman Trophy, winning the Big Ten, being propped up, Indiana being told they're the favorite, Indiana being told they're the best team, Indiana being told that they're it? How does Indiana handle that kind of atmosphere? Because Dan Lanning, as an underdog, good luck. He's tough. Oregon's going to be ready. That's going to be a heavyweight fight. When I see these teams, I see these games, the players, again, complete star-studded atmosphere in this matchup. And you see Mendoza and Elijah Surratt. Can they, again, stretch the field on Oregon? Can Dante Moore and company get the offense going? Can they stay balanced like they were against Iowa? These are big questions for Oregon. How did they get over the hump? I'm really flip-flopping in this game of which team I like, because it's really, really difficult to beat a team twice of this caliber. It really is difficult. So I would not be surprised in any way if Oregon won the game. I'm not going to pick that, though. I'm going to take Indiana because I saw them play Ohio State, and I know that they played their A game in that game, and I know Ohio State didn't. But the pieces that I saw, Indiana is legit. Indiana may not win the national title, but that Indiana team is really, really good. They play really sound football. They execute on offense, and no moment is going to be too big for that team because it's such a veteran group, and they're led by a quarterback with poise in Fernando Mendoza. I'm going to take Indiana to win the game. They advance to the national championship game as the number one seed. Calibrate your mind, folks. Indiana in a national championship game in football. Ohio State, Georgia. This might be the best game of the entire college football playoff. These two teams, these two coaches, they are widely renowned as the top two coaches in college football. And it's, I think, safe to say the winner of this game would be number one on that list after the matchup would be done. This is fascinating in so many different ways. Ohio State's offense against Georgia's defense with Kirby Smart, the Ryan Day Kirby Smart strength on strength. Then you have Ohio State's defense being elite and Georgia finding its offensive rhythm just a little bit, not a lot, but enough. Georgia's defense has also made some big improvements. We saw the defects in the pass defense against Alabama early in the season, and we said, can they shore that up by the playoff? They have tightened it up. They've been playing a lot better, but how is it going to hold up against Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate on the outside? That's where I have some concerns if I'm Georgia, is how are we going to defend Ohio State's skill position players? That's the tricky part. I'm going to take Ohio State to win the game. I think Julian Sand does enough. I think Ohio State's motivated. I think they're ready to go. They're ultra talented. So is Georgia. This one is going to be the best game of the college football playoff. Another classic, just like that Peach Bowl. This time it'll be out in Phoenix in the Fiesta Bowl. Ohio State advances to a national championship. They are going to play Indiana for a rematch of the Big Ten title game. Can Indiana repeat victories against Ohio State? Can they duplicate and mimic what they did in early December and mid-January? It's really, really difficult to beat a team twice. Ohio State's going to be motivated. Ohio State's getting to the national championship game, which means they're firing on all cylinders because they arguably have the toughest road of any team. Again, so if Ohio State gets the national championship, Ohio State wants to play for it, and that means they're playing elite level football and that they fixed some mistakes from the Big Ten championship game. Not having Daly is going to be an effect for Indiana. The whole Tigger Shabola controversy for Ohio State. Is he playing? Is he injured? You guys will see as time comes on. Availability reports have to be made public 72 hours before the game. So you will know here in the coming days that official news. We're going to keep that where we are for now. Here's the thing. You see this matchup between Ohio State and Indiana. And I'm trying to go through this bracket in terms of picks and not really dive in and preview these games because we're going to save that for the shows before these matchups so we can do more of a deep dive for you. So this is pretty 30,000 foot view of these matchups, which is why I'm not really diving super deep into it. But storylines wise, this is going to have everything. It's going to have the snub, the Big Ten title game, the Heisman, all the things are going to be at play. Ryan Day, Kurt Signetti. I'm going to take Ohio State to beat Indiana and win the national championship. I think they're going to do it. I think it's really difficult to beat a team twice. I think Indiana struck lightning in the way everything happened in that Big Ten championship game. And that's not to take anything away from them because they executed and they made plays when they needed to. They won the game and they earned it. But I don't think Ohio State's going to have a week with all those distractions ahead of the national championship game again. I don't think Ohio State's going to fail on 2 drives with 1 yard to go again. What if Julian Sane doesn't throw another early pick? These are the things that I don't think are duplicated in the game because Indiana was able to invert some stats. Those 2 defenses are absolutely legit. It will be a heavyweight bout, but I do think that Ohio State is going to win that game and advance to the lore of college football as a team that went and won another national championship. That would be 2 in a row. That's my college football playoff bracket as it stands right now. I think this is going to be a great series of games. That game in Norman is going to be a lot of fun between Oklahoma and Alabama. That winner is going to get Indiana. I'm not ultra confident in either of those teams beating the Hoosiers. So that's where my least confidence is there. I don't really have a true or straight feel for that game one way or the other outside of I think I can trust Oklahoma more and the Brett Venables defense more, especially the way Alabama's offense looked the last 2 times we saw it on the field. That's more so my logic there. And then the other toss-up game is Texas A&M and Miami. Again, it really is going to hinge on Carson Beck. If good Carson Beck shows up, Miami can win. If he doesn't, I don't think they can. So I'm going to take Ohio State to win that national championship game. Guys, that's the playoff bracket. We have some great games coming up. We appreciate you tuning into this quicker episode of my bracket prediction, my national championship pick, all of the things. We're going to break some more of these games down for you. We got another live show that's going to be on tap that we are working on. I am going to be live on site at the Cotton Bowl between Ohio State and the winner of Texas A&M and Miami. That game will be on New Year's Eve. So really looking forward to that. See some of you guys there. Again, thank you for tuning into the show. Make sure you're staying tuned on socials because we've got lots of content as we move through this college football playoff. Social media is at Saturday Cadence, at T Silver Bulletin, at Blake Biscardi on all platforms. Make sure you are locked in on all the coverage that we're going to be bringing you and some exclusive stuff too. Guys, thank you for tuning into the show. Enjoy the first round of the college football playoff, and we will see you next time to break these games down and see what matchups we get in the quarterfinal round. But in the meantime, enjoy the weekend of college football. God bless.